Okay, it is 7 o'clock. I am calling to order the meeting of the San Leandro City Council. Today is Monday, June 9th, 2025, and this is a special meeting. I got my terminology right. At this point in time, I would ask Councilmember Vivotos Walton to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you're able to.
To the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Aguilar.
Present.
Councilmember Azevedo.
Present.
Councilmember Bolt.
Present.
Councilmember Simon.
Present.
Councilmember Viveros Walton.
Present.
Vice Mayor Bowen is absent this evening. Mayor Gonzalez.
Present.
Thank you.
The City of San Leandro conducts orderly meetings to fulfill its mandate. Discriminatory statements or conduct that would potentially violate the Federal Civil Rights Act of 1964 and/or the California Fair Employment and Housing Act, California Penal Code Sections 403 or 415 are per se disruptive to meeting and will not be tolerated. Please see the City Council Handbook and City Council Meeting Rules of Decorum for more information. Madam Clerk, your announcement.
Thank you, Mayor. If you would like to make a public comment during the meeting, you can do so in person or via Zoom. If you are present at the meeting, please complete a speaker card and submit it to the city clerk before the item is presented. If you wish to participate in public comment via Zoom, you can use the raise your hand tool when the item is called. During the public comment session, speakers will be invited to speak and will have a set time to share their comments. A countdown timer will appear for their convenience, and when the time is up, the microphone will be muted. All raised hands outside of public comment will be lowered to avoid confusion. Once public comment is opened, hands may be raised to speak. Thank you.
So at this point in time, we'll move to agenda item number 3. Are there any items that council members would like to pull from our consent calendar? And if not, we'll go to public comment. Councilmember Aguilar.
I would like to move the consent calendar.
Okay, and Councilmember Vivotos Walton.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we've got a motion by Councilmember Aguilar with a second by Councilmember Vivotos Walton. At this point in time, we will move to any public comment if we have such,
Mr. Mayor, there is no public comment for this item?
either in person or online.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. We will close public comment on the item. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's vote on the consent calendar.
All votes are in. Motion passes 601 with Vice Mayor Bowen absent.
At this point in time, we'll move to action items 4A. And I believe we've got a presentation by Recreation and Parks Director Vicente Zuniga to guide us through this item.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and community members. I'm honored to present to you the San Leandro Recreation and Parks Master Plan, a blueprint that reflects not just where we are,
Just hold.
where we want to go together.
You could just hold just a second. Okay, thank you for your patience.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Try that again. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and community members. I'm honored to present to you the San Leandro Recreation and Parks Master Plan, a blueprint that reflects not just where we are, but where we want to go together as a city. This plan is rooted in voices of our community. From the very beginning, we prioritize robust, inclusive, and accessible engagement, and the results speak for themselves. We had over 1,000 total surveys collected. We hosted 3 public workshops, attended by an average of 50 to 60 residents at each workshop. Our team participated in many pop-up events, including the Moon Festival, MLK Day, and Cherry Festival, reaching hundreds and thousands more residents. We met directly with stakeholder groups, youth, seniors, educators, and maintenance staff. And we maintained open channels through our advisory committee and monthly recreation and parks Commission updates. This is more than a plan. It's a reflection of what our community told us they value. Every major recommendation in this plan, whether it's trails, shade structures, upgraded play areas, or support for mental and physical wellness, was shaped by that feedback. Tonight, we're excited to share how we begin turning this community's vision into a reality. This is the foundation for the next decade of investment in San Leandro parks, programs, and people. I'd like to introduce Madison Merrill from WRT, as well as Poonam Nakar from WRT. And online, we have Mike Spetz from Pros Consulting. They're going to be starting the presentation.
Great. Hello. It's a pleasure to be here. Next slide, please. Oh, great. All right, so today I'm going to just walk you through the draft Recreation and Parks Master Plan, followed by the Washington Manor Site-Specific Master Plan. So just a little framing here. Why do a Recreation and Parks Master Plan? It really is an opportunity to take a step back and assess San Leandro's park amenities and recreational assets, and also understand community needs. And from that, really build a clear vision for the coming decades. And then also a roadmap for how to really make that vision a reality. So this is just an overview of the planning process. We started about a year and a half ago, and as Vicente said, there was a wide array of community engagement from workshops, advisory committees, pop-up engagement events, and a couple surveys. And this was paired with a really in-depth analysis of the recreation and park system, which was the foundation for the recommendations found in this plan. So jumping into the plan, the Recreation and Parks Master Plan is really meant to comprehensively address the recreation and park system. It includes an array of strategic recommendations, both at a system-wide scale and site-specific scale. The plan includes 5 chapters, each of which I'll just address at a high level here. So the first is the executive summary, which summarizes the key findings from the other chapters, but also introduces the planning process and the value of recreation and parks in San Leandro. Second chapter is our community today. So really explains the existing conditions and introduces San Leandro's recreation and parks, both geographically and the number of acres, along with all the different amenities and recreation trends, and then also the city's relevant demographics, so how much population you have now and in the future, and then also considerations such as age and race, which are all very relevant to meeting the needs of the San Leandro community. The third chapter, our vision and priorities, really encapsulates the community engagement process and summarizes the priorities identified from that. The key community priorities are summarized on this slide from all the engagement efforts. Key priorities included expanded amenities, including more trails, dog parks, pickleball courts, all abilities play areas, exercise equipment, and more. Expanded program offerings. From the engagement process, we heard from residents in an interest for more adult fitness classes, swim lessons, after-school programs, and more. Interest in increased safety and comfort in the parks, so more shade, more places to sit and relax, better restrooms. Open space and trails are also really important to residents, and along with improved park access, so safer crosswalks and bike lanes and things that connect San Leandro's open space and park assets. And then access to school amenities was also identified as important, and those are really crucial assets to the community. And then finally, also interest in increased environmental sustainability in the parks through biodiversity and water conservation, and then also improved communications, really communicating, what the city has to offer, both facilities and programming. Chapter 4 then takes the vision and priorities established in Chapter 3 and identifies what the needs are for San Leandro. So we looked at San Leandro's level of service, and we currently have 1.5 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents. The general plan establishes a goal of 5 acres per 1,000 residents, and that the community also established or desires additional parkland. So there really is a need for additional parkland and just recreational assets in the community, which is a challenge as the community is built out primarily, but there are still lots of opportunities to increase access. Additionally, we identified the different deficient amenities, so what sorts of amenities the community needs and how those could be incorporated throughout the community. And this chapter concludes with a list of opportunities, both on existing city-owned land, but also within large developments such as the Bayfair TOD, and also the significant opportunity of joint use school agreements with the school district and how we can increase recreational opportunities through that. And chapter 5 is the last chapter. It's realizing our vision. So it provides an action plan with goals and strategies, including top 10 recommendations. It includes capital and maintenance cost estimates, funding strategies, and success metrics. Diving in a little deeper, the plan has 7 goals, which I'll touch on lightly. Goal 1 is expand access to recreational park opportunities. This is really about leveraging future development to help meet community needs, but also to strategically acquire parkland as opportunities arise and expand other recreational opportunities through open space and trails and access to school properties. Goal 2, establish strategic partnerships. Again, this is really about the school district and how we can establish a strong relationship with them for improved recreation opportunities. But there's also potential to have stronger partnerships with East Bay Regional Park District, Alameda County, and really just across city departments to really make and improve San Leandro's recreation and park system. Goal 3, expand recreation programming. As I mentioned, the plan identifies high-need programs and services, so the plan recommends that the city expand in those areas. There's also the recommendation to ensure that we have adequate facilities to meet those programming needs. The master plan did not do a comprehensive facility assessment, so that is something that is recommended to be able to understand how well indoor recreation is being met in San Leandro. Goal 4, improve park experience. So this is all about the city's existing parks and how they can be upgraded, how comfort can be improved, and how safety can be improved within those. Goal 5, equitable and inclusive parks. This is about improved access to recreation opportunities and also to ensure that existing programs and places are inclusive. Goal 6, public health and climate resilience, about enhanced shoreline resilience and flood protection, climate resilient parks, and supporting public health. And then finally, the last goal is planning and financing a recreation and park system. So this is about finding sustainable funding strategies to really implement the recommendations in the plan and to also plan and engage proactively and continuously as these things get implemented over time. And so with all these goals and policies, we also have developed success metrics to help measure success over time and through implementation. So I encourage you all to dive into that a little deeper in the document. And then just shifting a little bit more from the system-wide higher level perspective into the more site-specific strategies. So we have developed recommendations for each park in San Leandro, and this included first assigning each a tier. So the first tier, tier A, is about sustaining. So this means, you know, the park is working really well. It's meeting community needs relatively well, and we really just need to, you know, sustain it in the long term. Tier B is about strategic improvements. So things are mostly working well, but there's maybe a specific part of the park or amenity that needs, you know, strategic improvement. And then visionary is this park is not meeting community needs, and we really need to rethink and create a vision for this park moving forward. So these are the assignments for the parks in the plan. Most of them are tier A, as you can see. These parks are working well and really don't need any major upgrades. But there are a handful of parks in San Leandro that could either use strategic upgrades or new visions. So this is a good transition to Washington Manor. Washington Manor was identified as a Tier C park with opportunity to have a more comprehensive visionary plan for it. So as part of this master plan, we're able to develop a site-specific master plan for Washington Manor Park. This first started with an in-depth assessment of the park. So the park, as it exists, is well-loved and has a lot of great strengths, has a diverse range of amenities, and it is well-shaded and loved by the community. It does, however, have aging infrastructure and has limited parking and visibility from the street. We also got a lot of feedback specifically for Washington Manor Park, with one of the workshops specifically dedicated to exploring the opportunities on the site. Key things that we heard is that residents really love the trees and open spaces and recreational activities already there, but they are interested in seeing the playground updated, the basketball courts resurfaced, better lighting, repaired sidewalks, safer play areas. Interested in native planting and habitat protection. That also includes educational features. They also want the park to be able to accommodate community events, arts and crafts, and music performances. Picnicking is very important, and shade and user comfort is something that wants to be maintained. And again, parking is somewhat of a concern for residents. And then in general, there is a range of requests for expanded recreation amenities, including bocce ball, volleyball, badminton, exercise equipment. An array of things here. So this is the proposed concept design. The key improvements here I'll walk through. The first is increased visibility to the street through enhanced entry plantings and pathway treatments and gateway elements to help really draw people into the site. Expanded parking, we recognize that this is an issue, but in general, expanding the parking lot is pretty constrained from the aquatic center. So we have expanded the parking lot ever so slightly, but to help mitigate the parking issue as much as we can. There's also a new destination play area. So this area would be thematic and really draw people in and be a unique play experience. We have a recreational area, which is a plaza area that could really accommodate Tai Chi and other community events well. And this area also includes an optional recreation building where the existing preschool or daycare area is, with the idea that that facility could be remodeled and be more multi-purpose. Improved basketball court and fitness stations, a couple ping pong tables, as that was expressed a desire from the community. We still are retaining one of the practice softball fields to still retain that use. We still have the loop path around the park, but it's expanded in width to help accommodate more users and reduce conflicts with cyclists. We have additional and new picnic areas, some of them small and dispersed, others larger for group picnicking. more seating, a multi-purpose meadow for picnicking or self-directed activities. We have a community destination garden, demonstration garden, sorry, and then increased signage and a dog park area. So that's sort of the summary of the improvements. And then we have estimated high-level costs for these improvements. And so without the recreation building, we have it estimated at 13 million, with the recreation building 18 million. And this is really with the idea that, you know, everything would be done at a very high level, that it would be a really, yeah, just a really well-designed and constructed park. So, and then finally, this is the financial and staffing plan for the park. We've estimated the number of full-time equivalents that would be required for park maintenance and for the recreational building, if that is a thing. And then also the total cost recovery year over year. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. What we're going to do is we're going to take public comment on this item, then we'll come back to council members for their questions and their comments. At this point in time, we'll take public comment.
Mr. Mayor, there is no public comment in person or online.
Okay, so we're closing public comment on item 4A and coming back to council for your questions and discussion. And this is an action item, so as a reminder, we will need a motion and a second, a vote to approve this plan if that's our desire. Questions or discussion? Councilmember Simon, please.
A very nice presentation. Thank you very much. And nice job, staff all around. Very impressive. I've heard lots of good things from the community about this plan. They've been looking for it for a long time, and it's here, and it looks really good. So thank you. A few questions for you. Since we have got a couple of other agencies in our city, one is East Bay Regional Park District with Oyster Point, and then also HARD has a small linear park on 150th or something like that. Have we had any coordination with those two agencies on this plan?
I'm going to make one quick clarification. The 150th park is not within the geographic boundaries of San Leandro. So the one Oyster Point definitely is, though.
Unam Nakor can clarify as far as their input, but initially we had representatives from East Bay Regional as well as a couple HARD board members that attended a couple of our workshops and gave feedback. Part of our strategies and recommendations is to further collaborate and strengthen those partnerships to see if there's some synergy and possible opportunity for collaboration for future programming. I will say for the Bay Fair project, we are having some discussions in just to regards of their master trail plan and how we can integrate that to the Bay Fair project.
Excellent, good. We'd really like to see continued coordination with those agencies. And related to that, and our marina in Oyster Bay is just looking at other cities around the bay, and we're very fortunate to be on the bay. Other cities have sailing programs, and I know that's an investment and it costs money, I understand. However, I think it's something to at least keep in mind what an asset we have, that marina, and getting our folks out on the water would be great. San Francisco has a program, big city, but Redwood City does, a few other neighboring cities. So could be volunteer portion. So I would like to at least keep that in the back of our minds. Perhaps that could open up, what an opportunity would that be for our youth?
I agree. Part of the preliminary conceptual design, park designs for that location does include storage area for kayaks and water activities as well. Is also working with the partner who offered boating classes. The name is, I'm drawing a blank on the name, but they were very involved as part of park design for that location. So part of the initial preliminary designs do include water activities to be included at that location.
Excellent. And The other thing I saw in your plan, which was really happy to see, is opening up the trails along San Lorenzo Creek, San Estadillo Channel, and San Leandro Creek. And just so important, that would be the manor of 5,000 homes who drive to get to the marina. And it's such a shortcut just to take that channel, take cars off the road, reduce wear and tear on our roads, saving money long-term, plus improving health. So I'm a big proponent of that. And I know a bit of a hurdle is the railroad, getting over the railroad tracks. So just want to get that out there early. Dealing with the railroad is really important. And one other thought before I get into the manor, I'll probably wait my next turn to get into the manor. But the other thought is our parks are really nice and people use them a lot. And a lot of them aren't from San Leandro. And I'm not discouraging San Leandro folks. We're an inclusive community. Everyone's welcome. However, when our taxpayers, our base, don't get the same benefit as others, that's a little concerning. So Manor Pool, for example, super busy. I mean, packed. And a lot of our residents may not be able to go because it's so full. Have we considered different rates for different folks?
So most of our activities in our recently adopted fee structure does have resident and non-resident rates. I will have to confirm about general admission for open swim. I have to confirm if those have different rates. But I believe almost 98, 99% of all of our rentals programs that we offer do have a tier eligibility or groups that have different rates. And so, for example, there's nonprofit rates, there's San Leandro resident rates, there's non-resident rates, and there's commercial rates.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for following up on the pool because I'm not sure about the pool. Thank you.
Councilmember Bolt, please. If you can punch in again, my apologies.
Thank you for the presentation. It was great. I will say, because Councilmember Simon had a great idea about the channel, but I will add in there's a golf course in the middle of that, and you might have to wear a helmet going through that area. So as a kid, we used to ride our bikes through there, and they'd try and hit us. I don't want to do that to our citizens. I want to go back to the Manor Park now. There's currently 2 softball fields there, and we are suggesting removing one.
Yes, that is the current proposal with the idea that the removing one would then open up the field to more multi-use and other activities. There's also maybe there seemed to be a suggestion that those fields aren't heavily utilized all the time, both of them. So that way maybe one might be enough to meet needs.
Yeah, I don't disagree that there's times of the year where they're not really used, but a little shout out to our San Leandro High softball team who made it all the way to the state championship this year. I think there is need for it, and I'm nervous about taking it away because even during the baseball season, the baseball leagues use it, but you guys would know better than I would as far as how many people are calling and asking for a permit to play, and then also the Little Giants, I think they were called, they use both the fields. So what does that do to us at that point?
Poonam is going to come up, our consultant from WRT. I do want to share, we do take statistical data from our registration and reservation system. So we're able to see trends and patterns as far as usage at specific fields. Also, one of the goals is also strengthening partnership with the school district to activate some of their locations as well too. So we feel very confident if we're able to work out a mutually beneficial partnership for joint use at some school district facilities. I think the combination of the two would allow the city to be more flexible in the amenities that we have at parks if we are meeting that community need.
you could hold just a second. There we go. Thank you.
Vicente actually touched on, part of what I was going to say is we did also hear that the teams were already using some of the school facilities, which currently actually have the amenities that they need for the practices. The other thought was that, Washington Manor is one of your 3 community parks. And through a lot of the community engagement work, we heard a need for community parks and that would have a diversity of experiences offered. And as we were thinking about what's the best use and balance of that, mix of uses within Washington Manor, also given its location within a residential neighborhood, the concept design explored this idea of instead of the 2 softball fields, if we only keep 1, it opens up opportunities for other uses. Along with, if you remember the chart that Madison was sharing, in the visionary category, there are 2 other parks. One of them is Stenzel Park, and Stenzel Park actually does have an opportunity to be reimagined with a heavier emphasis on active recreation and some of the sports fields. So the idea was that, the recommendations that were made for Washington Manor were made taking into consideration the overall system-wide recommendations that we were thinking about.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's why you guys are the experts, and I asked the questions because those were great answers. And I didn't think about the school districts and how they can play a role in this, because virtually almost all of them have a softball field that we can, or a baseball diamond we can utilize. So thank you.
Councilmember Votis Walton, please.
Thank you all for all of your work in getting us here today. I think a couple of thoughts. I'll start off with a couple of thoughts and then I'll go into my questions, depending on whether I'm able to get to Manor, because I have a whole bunch of questions about Manor, because that's a park that's close to my heart. I think since 2020, I think that there is a public perception of just how important our amenities are, especially our outside amenities. So I think this is coming at the right moment as we think about, the overall capital improvement needs in terms of our assets, but also kind of coinciding with our budget process, because I think even folks who did not have children came to appreciate our outdoor assets a lot more. And, it's been really great to see that transition from folks who did not have children coming out to the park. So thank you. Thank you for that. I'm going to transition into I don't see the page number in here, page 12, which is the vision and priorities. I have a couple of questions. Is there smoking allowed in public parks?
No.
Thank you. That was him. That was my softball. From here on out, you're on the hot seat. My comment there is that, and it kind of bleeds a little bit into the Manor Park conversation, that there's some of the elders that use that park smoke pretty heavily. I go to that park every Saturday morning. And even at Saturday morning at 9 a.m. is heavy smoking from some of the elders in our community. And so I'm just trying to figure out how to communicate expectations, and especially as we change the layout of Manor Park, just kind of thinking through how do we communicate our expectations of how to properly use the park. That's something that comes up to me. And then I really appreciate the attentiveness of the team to looking at agreements with our various partners and really trying to figure out how did they come to be? How do we come up with an agreement that benefits San Leandrons as opposed to an organization? So I really appreciate that. I think I might have enough time to go into Manor Park. Um, can you talk a little bit about, actually, that's not true. One more question around equitable access to programming. I think that what has been made clear, and just I'm coming off of the summer programming fiasco that every parent goes through. Like you start planning for it in like March, and then you start planning for your summer activities. And I know that our camps are amazing and that folks really want to grab spot. And I've been thinking about how do we provide equitable access for people who may not have fast broadband, who may not have the equipment, or like even a second person signing on to the system so that you're able to get one spot. And I was wondering if we looked at all at various enrollment systems. I know that like some free concerts, like Stern Grove in San Francisco has a system where you put in your name, and then, you know, depending if you're a resident or a non-resident, it would give you, like everyone puts in their name for like a week. And then there's a lottery system that starts with like residents, so that the people who have high, you know, fast internet, that have new computers that don't freeze in the middle of it, that people are actually able to access our services a little bit more equitably. Have we thought about that system at all?
The city currently utilizes Actinet software. We are talking through our monthly meetings of ways to help mitigate the traffic and figure out different systems for accessing the system to register. We've made some small changes. We now open up registration on a Saturday at to allow. Previously, it was at 8:30 during the week, during drop-offs. So now we have it on the weekend. We also staff both of our locations for walk-ins as well to allow people to come in and fill out registration forms in advance. So we have those. And we've also increased our funding for RecLink, which is a scholarship program. Historically, we've awarded about 15,000. This year, we awarded close to 50,000. But to your point, as far as the lottery, we can continue to explore different systems to allow, I guess, more accessibility for people to register. I do want to say it is a reflection the classes are popular and people do enjoy our classes. So we will explore different ways to make it more level playing field for people who don't have access to high broadband service.
Yeah.
Excuse me. High broadband service or a computer. So we'll work on different strategies for that. So that we're currently having those conversations.
Thank you. And then just in terms of, and this is my last question, and then I'll hand the mic back to the chair. In terms of payment, are folks only able to make a payment via credit card?
I think our new system, we've recently got new PIN pads. It's check, cash, credit cards. I think we accept Venmo now and PayPal now. So there's multiple different ways for people to register and process payment now. So yeah, for sure, checks, cash, or credit card. But I believe the new systems also allow Venmo and I believe PayPal as well now too.
But I'm able, if I'm
Councilmember Aguilar.
Thank you, Mayor Gonzalez. Thank you for the presentation. It looks like the total estimated cost for this master plan is about $47 million. And we're focusing on the manor, but we also have some other parks that, absolutely need some attention, like Thrasher Park. So can we talk a little bit more? It's looking here like the estimated cost is $6.6 million. I know there were talks and discussions. We had some park users come in and talk about reimagining the skate park and partnering with Tony Hawk. Is that something, and looking at this, the recommendation is to be based on site-specific master plan? Is that something that's still in the talks with regards to revamping the skate park at Thrasher?
We are designated that park. Yes, that is our only skate park in the city. To answer your question, as far as we're having conversation, yes, we're currently speaking to representatives for Thrasher Magazine to see if there's grant opportunities or partnership opportunities for possibly refurbishing or rebuilding or finding additional funding for that park. So that's one of the initiatives in the plans, really seeking partnerships and grant opportunities. As far as reimagining that location, that park will have to be redesigned to figure out the optimal space. According to staff and from the community, the location that it is now is not optimal. So we would have to plan on that. But just to answer your question also in regards to Washington Manor does have a site-specific plan, but we are looking at the plan based on the equity lens and picking which amenities would be completed or upgraded first. That's just the first location we selected to have a master plan as a blueprint as we develop other master plans to include cost recovery, to include maintenance costs, and to align with the master plan. So there will be some additional plans and additional designs coming for other parks as well.
Thank you. And my council colleague, Villeros Walters, had mentioned Wi-Fi. Does every park have Wi-Fi access? Free public Wi-Fi access?
I apologize for not knowing this exact question. I know it got asked to me recently. I'm gonna estimate, I think we have 5 or 7 parks that currently have free Wi-Fi. And I apologize for not having that answer, but I can get that to you.
Thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you.
And just very quickly, Councilmember Votis Walton, sorry for cutting you off. When I turned on my mic, I actually hit next. So apologies there. And thank you for your questions, Councilmember Aguilar. Next, coming to Councilmember Acevedo.
Thank you for your presentation. As a former Rec and Park Commissioner, I'm really excited about this. My first question is, what's the latest update on Halcyon Park? We know that it burnt down and it's been demoed. When is it going to be available? When it built back up so the kids can play on it again?
The initial estimates is early July of this year. So yeah, I believe the last estimate I got is early July of this year. The new park will be, the new playground will be installed and open to the public. So in the next probably 30 to 45 days.
Awesome, because all my neighbors are asking. That's in my neighborhood. And I'm excited about Washington Manor Park. The community's been asking about those ping pong tables. And how many ping pong tables are we putting in there? Do we know?
I think it's 2.
Okay. And I'm excited for another dog park. And I am concerned about the smokers there too. I go to that park regularly and there's smokers right by the walkways, right when you walk by and the kids are walking by and they're just smoking right there, sitting in chairs. So yeah, if we can do something about that, yeah, that's important. And I would like to move this forward. I would like a motion to move this forward. The San Leandro Recreation and Parks Master Plan and the Washington Manor Park Site Specific Master Plan.
Thank you.
Sorry, really quick. I just wanted to add that this is a plan. We are not committing the funds to renovate Washington Manor at this time. It's a plan for future enhancements and improvement. The plan is making recommendations for us to be strategic on how we allocate funds and use the equity lens and ensure that there's accessibility for all of our programs and parks. So I just wanted to make that clear as well too. This is a plan. There will be a implementation plan that will be developed based on these recommendations.
Thank you for the clarification. At this point in time, we'll go around for a second time, and I'll reserve my questions and comments after these council members. Councilmember Simon, please.
Thank you. Another question regarding Bay Access and Bay Trail. I live in Heron Bay and just love it down there, the access that we have, and would like to make sure everyone has access to that and everyone can enjoy it. There are some trails in the northern half of Heron Bay Marsh that have been fenced off and closed since I've lived there for 25 years. And I'm always curious, why are they fenced off? Have we looked at those there's a trail right past one of the main canal bridges that leads to, I think, the detention basins next to the golf course, but it's a long trail. Have we considered opening that up for more public access?
I have to look, is this recent or has this been fenced off? Because,
It's been fenced off for 25 years. But
Okay.
it's open every now and then, but it's a chain link gate.
okay, recently we fenced off an area because it's a protected wetland. And we had some residents that were building ramps in a protected wetland, so we included some fencing. But I'll have to get back to you as far as if that's an opportunity for accessibility for that trail system. The plan does indicate meeting with some of our partners, so I'm not sure if who owns that parcel. But as far as advancing our trail system, it highlights reaching out to these partners to see if there's availability through joint use agreements to get access, so we have a connected trail system throughout the city.
I'm pretty sure it's city property, but it's right next to the heavy-duty bridge, that's fire-rated bridge, with two big culverts, not far from Heron Bay. But we can look into that. Next is Washington Manor Park. And again, very nice job on this master plan. A lot of good feedback I've received from others. I do support the one ball field concept that you're proposing, and I like your response and comments. There are other ball fields in the city that are underutilized and are not smack dab in the middle of a bunch of residential homes. So I do really like this concept of opening this up for other activities on that second ball field. There's also a lot of large eucalyptus trees in Manor Park. And a lot of residents have reached out to me about safety concerns of those massive trees with very small root bulbs. Are we considering removal of those eucalyptus at all in this plan? And replacing with a more fitting tree?
Yeah, the idea is that there would be selective thinning of the tree canopy to, preserve the great trees and canopy that we have by also, thinning it out, like you said, and planting it with new trees as well.
And I think in the plan, we are also suggesting a study to, assess the health of the existing trees before making the decisions about which ones remain and which ones can be taken down.
I think there's a really beautiful cork tree in there. Really nice tree that's pretty unique to our areas. That's pretty cool.
Councilmember, I just wanted to add as well that what Poonam shared is consistent with our tree master plan that we recently adopted in January as well too. And it's taking a case-by-case approach on evaluating each tree for the opportunity to see if it's in good health and remove it, taking a systematic approach and a phased approach to removing eucalyptus trees and replacing with more native type trees that are identified in our tree master plan.
Okay. Two more comments. One is expansion of Manor Pool, and the second is fining for littering, increasing our fines to $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, something high, because I see so much littering occurring. The marina in particular. But back to the expansion of the Manor Pool. That was a concept many years ago, and the residents had kind of hoped it was happening. Any mention or thought on that?
I can take that. So the plan is recommending a future feasibility study on that. Currently, we're off. While they were conducting a plan, it was under renovation. So their recommendation is for a feasibility study to determine if more space or and provide capital recommendations for if it's feasible for future expansion or not.
Okay, just want to keep this on our radar because it was studied pretty extensively in the past. I even understand a lot of the infrastructure still in there, piping and things like that. So I want to make sure that stays on our radar. And then back to the fining, again, I just have to say this, Debbie Pollard, one of our previous public works directors, she would tell me, and I'm just blown away at the Marina Park, how just, I hate to use this word, disgusting it is in the mornings after a weekend, just garbage everywhere. And I feel for our staff having to clean that up. It's like Groundhog Day, the movie, where it's over and over again, where the staff have to pick up this trash. And that's our taxpayer money having to do this when people are completely disrespecting our our beautiful facilities. So I'd like to find some way to get folks to take better care of our parks, because number one, it's bad for the environment. Number two, it's a waste of taxpayer money to pay staff to pick up a pig pen after others. But to wrap up, excellent job on these plans by all of you. Thank you.
Councilmember Veras Walton, please.
Thank you. I had a question regarding one of the goals, the top 10 recommendations was to acquire parkland. It's the last recommendation out of them. Have we identified any potential acquisitions, or it's just like a general goal that we're kind of working towards?
We have identified some parcels. It's going to be a collaborative effort with community development as well too. We were in the process of doing evaluation on our park development and impact fees. And also working with them, we'll have to determine a park acquisition strategy plan as well too. So this is what just gives high level recommendations, providing maps of which areas of the city are park deficient. So that gives us at least a blueprint to start strategically working to acquire land or work on joint use agreements to provide additional access at those locations as well too.
Mhm. I'm particularly interested as we think about our opportunity sites like Bayfair that are urban parks where we can, I love parks with lots of trees, but there are many urban cities that have done a fantastic job of putting together some urban parks that are multiple uses. I'm thinking Highland Park. Anyway, I just rethinking some of our urban spaces where we're thinking about redeveloping. And I know that this is already part of the equation. I'm just kind of underscoring that. And now I'm going to kind of just double down on Manor Park. Is the dog park that is proposed in comparison to Marina Park? What is the difference between like in size? Is it smaller, bigger than Marina Park?
I don't have the exact measurements, but in the conceptual drawing, just looking at scale, it's going to be a smaller than Marina Park.
Mm-hmm. The reason I'm asking, and I'm going to kind of pull the thread on Councilmember Simon's comment around community expectations of when you come to use the park. Like I mentioned, I love Manor Park. We go there every Saturday morning. And pet owners tend to leave their dogs off leash, and they do it in various park assets throughout the city, even when folks know that their dogs are supposed to be leashed. And there's a lot of other expectations about cleanliness, the use of amplified sound, smoking, non-compatible activities that I have witnessed at Manor Park, like gambling, that I know is a recreation activity for a group of people, but it's an incompatible use in that space. So I'm just kind of, I do really want to kind of pull that thread on how do we communicate with the public in a way that's respectful and culturally appropriate, but it kind of digs into enforcement. Ultimately, in order for a rule to be kept alive by all of us, it needs to be somewhat enforced. Can you talk a little bit about enforcement plans or that's coming in the future, or just a little bit about that? And that is my last question.
Safety and comfort were one of the top priorities for the community. So safety was one of the top priorities for the city. So we're actively going to be working with PD on developing some strategies for enforcement. Currently outside of PD, we do not have any enforcement at parks, although starting in July, we will be partnering up with Lars to do parking enforcement at parks, which is the first time we're going to try that pilot program in July. So I'm excited to see if we can change some behavior in regards to a lot of the illegal parking violations we have in the parking lot.
But there's a lot of models that we have reviewed on how we can increase enforcement, whether that's through park ambassadors, that's whether through those park rangers. So we're going to continue those conversations. We had some preliminary conversations with PD on different strategies or programs or utilizing explorers. And also talk a little bit with SLE on their model with their ambassadors as well too. So we're currently looking at different models to see how we can support park users to feel safe at park and to have some enforcement at parks. But that definitely is one of the priorities that the community wants, is to feel safe in a park.
Thank you so much for your time. I don't know if anyone seconded Councilmember Azevedo, so I'd like to second the motion.
Okay, so now my questions. If we can go to chapter 2 from your presentation, I'd love it if you could put it up there because my note is oblique to myself. So we just go back to both. I'm going to do chapter 2, 3, and 4, one question each. Chapter 2, I see soccer appears to have a very large market potential on average. Is that the way I interpret that?
Yeah, so what this graph is showing is the national trends for Parks and Recreation compared to San Leandro's demographics. So if it's above that black line of the national average, then based on the city's composition demographically, it's kind of expected that it would be higher than the national average. So it's not necessarily saying that this is what the community said. This is just trying to bring in the national trends into the conversation.
So if I understand you correctly, in light of our demographics, we should be a high soccer potential market.
Yes.
Well, I will just say that from door knocking, the number one concern that people at doors offered me was where are the soccer fields. So that lines up perfectly with what I heard at doors. Chapter 3, highest priorities. Let's see. Go to the next one. So out of these themes, how do I think about what's the most important or in the top quartile?
Yeah, if we actually go back to this slide here, this graph is from the Statistically Valid Survey, and it basically asks.
I'm going to pause you right there.
Yeah.
Was it a random sample?
Yes.
That's not what I had heard. It was a random sample achieved how?
Through mail. There's 2 surveys, and who wants to speak to it?
So the random sampling for statistically valid survey is selected based on zip codes. So it is across various zip codes to make sure that there is diversity of responders that are responding to the survey questions. And so it went out to 400. It was mailed out. It was mailed out to several. To all the households within the different zip codes, but 406 survey responses were received. And the summary of the statistically valid survey is based on the 400
So I'm just,
responses.
I have asked this question before in a separate context. I don't have comfort that it's statistically valid. So unless someone can actually show me that, I'd prefer that we not call it a statistically valid sample, because that has very specific meaning. So I'm just going to, that's my commentary. We'll put that to the side. Coming back to the other page. So just looking at this, what inference do I draw about what's the most important part of these pieces?
Yeah, and feel free to chime in. So this is a summary of, I would say, some of the top concerns or priorities that we heard across the various engagement activities that we did. And I mean, we heard a lot of different types of feedback as well, but these really emerged as some of the top priorities for the community. And the way these are folded into the recommendations of the plan, or the the goals are in response to these priorities, as well as I think we have a slide here that summarizes the top what are the top 10 recommendations.
Okay. Chapter 4. Curious about the 1.5 acres per thousand residents. In the numerator, does that include the golf course?
No,
So what is included in that 1.5 acres?
that is just developed parkland. That's, not special use facilities such as the golf course.
But the 5 acres would.
Una, let me just jump in. So just parkland is the 1.5 for developed park. If you include parks, schools, and the golf course, we're at 4.3.
I'm just looking at the city's general plan because I'm trying to compare apples to apples. And the city's general plan of 5, it says including non-traditional open spaces such as golf courses and school grounds. So are you saying that the right comparison number is 4.5 to 5.0?
That's correct. So the 5 acres per thousand is the target, is the goal that the city, that the general plan has included. In the city's general plan, if the special use parks such as the golf course and other open spaces are included, and some of the school facilities even, that adds up to what the number that Vicente just gave you.
So we're within 10% to the general plan number. Now, whether that's the right number or not is a whole separate question.
Correct.
Perfect. Okay. Now that everybody has spoken, I'd like to go through a formality of accepting a motion in a second. I think Councilmember Azevedo, you'd like to make the motion formally. And what is the motion?
The motion is to implement the Saliendo Recreation and Parks Master Plan and the Washington Manor Site-Specific Master Plan.
To approve and implement them, correct? And do I have a second?
I originally seconded, but I actually would like to offer it to Councilmember Simon since Manor Park is in your district.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. I will second it.
I've got a motion by Councilmember Azevedo with a second from Councilmember Simon. Seeing no further discussion, please vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes unanimous, 601, with Vice Mayor Bowen absent.
Okay, at this point in time, we're going to go to item 4B. And 4B is going to be a little bit complicated because we will have different council members who may need to recuse themselves. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take about a 3-minute recess so that we can all be sure that we're on the same page of how this is going to go. City Attorney will be speaking with the council members. When we come back together, we will start with public comment on item 4B. Then we will allow the council members, to the extent that they want to speak as members of the public and not as members of the council. If they want to do that, they will be afforded that opportunity to speak in the same way that other members of the public are allowed to speak. So give us about 3 minutes to make sure that we are all aligned on how we're going to accomplish this, to make sure we're legally correct, and then we will move forward. Okay, it is 8:08 and we are reconvening. There's one other announcement that I'd like to make on this item. So I mentioned first, we're going to start with public comment on item 4B. Another announcement is that all the council members have already received a briefing and a discussion on specifically the Mulford Library project. So we're not actually going to have the staff presentation literally again because we've all seen the staff presentation. We've asked questions. We've done our part on that one in particular. So we're not going to represent that to council. Obviously, we want the public to ask their questions, to make their comments, and all that kind of stuff right here at the beginning. But just don't be surprised that we as a council will not rehear what we have already heard before this meeting. With that in mind, so let us begin with item 4B. And in particular, let's start with public comment on this item. And I'm going to turn to my council members because I know there's been some discussion about potential recusals. Are there any council members that will be speaking as part of public comment? And if so, just if you can raise your hand so that I can be aware. So I've got one. I've got Councilmember Bolt who will be speaking as part of public comment. Okay. So let's do this. Are you okay going last? Or would you like to go first? I'm just trying to figure out logistically. You'll go last. Perfect. So at this point in time, do we have hands online for public comment? And if so, how many?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have 4 hands up online and we have 5 speaker cards in person, 6 speaker cards in person,
And then Councilmember Bolt would be 7.
including his. He filled
Including
out a
his.
speaker card.
Thank you
And
very much.
we have another hand up online.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to begin in person. Yeah. And if you can just stay down there until we begin in earnest the first part of the next one. Okay, so beginning with public comment, if you could please line up, she'll call you about 2 or 3 at a time.
Thank you,
We're
Mr.
gonna start in person.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll start with Darlene Evans, Paul Martin Rodriguez, and then Kay Mattoon.
I am totally inadequate. Maybe if we had a little bit more recreation, 7 kids on bicycles and with their fake guns and stuff wouldn't be shooting at me at Palma Plaza and me calling 1 o'clock the police department saying, what could I have done differently? There were 7 boys and I did get them removed. And the next day near the high school, they said, oh, that was us. Recreation is very important. I live next to it in Oakland, California. And I just think that the city sometimes doesn't give enough information to the public so we know what we're doing. I feel very stupid here tonight, very stupid. That you might have 6 weeks and more to know about things and we hardly ever hear about it. We have 20 computers at the senior center. They're hardly ever full. We can have other people come there, do things. We don't know about our government. We know about our debt. That is so much. But these kids have a responsibility that when the San Leandro Times, does it ever work with the city really? And do you really work with the San Leandro Times? They're the ones who said, hey, these 14 things are not really allowed on the street. But the kids, it's Friday night, it's 8 p.m. It's Friday night at a park. What are they going to do? I knew a Romanian family that were fired out more or less where they lived, and they were near the marina, and the kids went fishing. And I saw a 1-year-old walk who didn't have the language. Our recreation is more than just, what do I do with my body? What do I do with my brains?
Thank you. Paul Martin Rodriguez, Kay Mattoon, and Carrie Mason.
Good evening, members of the City Council. My name is Paul Rodriguez, and I'm proud member of Drywall Ladders Local 9068 and part of the North Cal Carpenters Union for the last 16 years. I have also been a resident of the San Leandro for the past 10 years. I'm here tonight to strongly support the Mulford Marina Branch Library project. This project represents more than just a new building. It means jobs, good union jobs for people like me and many others who live in San Leandro and the surrounding communities. It means the chance for workers to earn a living wage, receive health benefits, and support our families with dignity. For me personally, it would mean the rare opportunity to work in the city I call home. That's something many of us in the trades don't often get. This project gives us a chance to build something meaningful for the community while staying close to our families. So I respectfully ask you, please approve this project as it is. Help keep your local workers working and invest in both the future of our city and the people who live here. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Kay Mattoon, Carrie Mason, and then Dylan Bolt.
If I could have the next speaker line up so that we cut our travel time. Thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is Kay Mattoon. I'm a proud member of the Drywall Lathers Local 9068. I'm an apprentice, just starting out my career. I've also been a San Leandro resident for over 20 years, most of my life. I'm here tonight to voice my strong support for the Mulford Marina Branch Library project. This project represents opportunity. It means reliable union jobs for skilled tradespeople like myself and many others who live in and around San Leandro. Jobs that offer fair wages, healthcare, apprenticeship, and benefits that help us support our families and plan for the future. For workers like me, it also means furthering my career going through this apprenticeship. Every local project we work on helps us earn benefits we'll one day depend on, so we can retire with dignity after a lifetime of hard work. Projects like this one aren't just about today's paycheck. They're about long-term security for our families. And personally, the chance to work right here in my hometown is something I value deeply. Most of us in the trades spend a lot of our time commuting. Being able to stay close to home while building something meaningful for this community, that's rare and it matters. So I respectfully ask that you approve this project as it stands. Support local workers, invest in the city's future, and help ensure that we can keep building strong for today and for the years ahead. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Carrie Mason, and then Dylan Bolt.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Mason. I'm a lifelong resident of San Leandro and for almost the last 20 years in the marina. My kids are now 18 and 16, but when they were little, this was a place that we could go to all the time. We would ride our bikes there, and it was just an opportunity for family time on the cheap and be able to read books to my kids and further their love for reading, which they continue to this day. I want that opportunity for the families in my community as well. You know, one of the reasons that it has been brought to not fund this is because of the utilization has gone down. I have seen it since we have been there, the hours just diminish and diminish and diminish, and now it's only 8. I would love for the opportunity to have a library in our backyard again. And I just don't want the Mulford branch to go in the same route as the South branch. I want the commitment made over 12 years ago to be upheld, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Dylan Bolt, and Dylan Bolt will be the last person speaking in person. Then we will go online.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm here speaking as a resident a lifelong resident in the Marina District who utilized the Mulford Garden Library, as we referred to it, the Little Round Library, my whole life. It means a lot to our community. A little bit of history. Over 12 years ago, this was a commitment made by the prior council members involved. And it was to sweeten the pot on the redevelopment of the marina project, which we weren't all in favor of, to be quite honest, at the beginning. And this was something to get us over that hump. We did a lot of, as a city, we did a lot of outreach. We did a lot of communication. And that's 13 years, maybe 15 years of this. And it's disheartening that we get this and now we got to vote on it within 4 days. So I want to say thank you to the North Cal Carpenters who came out, because this means more than just a library, as you heard. They will utilize it as residents of the city, but to be able to work on it, for the teachers at Garfield to have a list of books for their students during the summertime to do the reading, the summer reading program. These are just the solid things that come out of us redoing this library. And we need to make sure that this goes through as promised, so that we don't see our library go the way of South Branch Library and some of the other ones in the past. So, well, I'm not going to encourage, because I guess that's wrong to do that. But personally, as a resident, I'd love to see this pass. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, we will now go online.
How many hands do we have?
We have 6 hands up online.
Thank you.
Israel Avila, you may unmute yourself.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. First, I'd like to thank the City Council, Mayor, and staff for letting me speak. My name is Israel with the NorCal Carpenters Local 730 in Alameda County. I'm calling in tonight to support the Mulford Marina Branch Library. This project will provide the residents livable wages, an opportunity to attend a joint labor management apprenticeship program where they will learn the skills necessary to build this project and other future projects in San Leandro. This project will provide healthcare to them and their family. Healthcare is essential in this day and age. In all, the Mulford Library will help create successful careers for the residents of San Leandro. For these reasons, I'm in favor of the Mulford Marina Branch Library, and I ask please not to reject all bids. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you. Daniel Wood, you may unmute yourself.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for your time. My name is Daniel Wood. I'm the president of Giant Construction. We're based in Oakland. On April 10th, we submitted the lowest responsive bid of the 10 bidders who submit for the Mulford Marina Branch Library. I'm calling tonight to urge you not to reject all bids, but instead to move forward with this important project. The bid you have in hand is within the city's budget. According to the staff report, San Leandro is receiving a $4 million state grant to help fund the work. The city has already invested over $1 million in planning and design. And that kind of commitment from the city of San Leandro has brought us to the starting line of a project that could truly benefit the community. I listened in on last week's council meeting. I heard the hard conversations around budget cuts, the difficult fiscal choices you're facing. I understand the concerns about staffing and operating costs for a new library. But I also heard something else, a recognition that these are hard times, but they won't last forever. Budget deficits are often temporary, and a brand new library is permanent. It seems to me that if the city passes on this project, it risks losing sizable resources it has already committed, the state grant, the favorable pricing, and the momentum it's already established. If you build now, The library will be there ready to serve, ready to be staffed when the city is through this difficult period. I feel that in a time when safe and affordable options for people to gather and connect are increasingly rare, libraries remain essential community hubs. Building this library will keep that tradition alive for generations. I'll close again by urging the council to look beyond the current budget cycle and give this project the green light. And thanks again for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Joel Toscano, you may unmute yourself.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening. My name is Joel Toscano. I am a member of Local 713 Carpenters Union. Been a member for 12 years. I'm here today to urge the City Council not to reject all the bids for the Milford Marina Library project. As you can see, there are many benefits that a project like this brings to the city of San Leandro, starting with a safe place for residents to attend. Also, this would create many construction jobs and the payment of area standard wages and benefits. This would only give a chance for San Leandro residents to work in the city in which they reside. With this in mind, it would ensure the money generated in a project like this will stay in the city of San Leandro and the former taxes. In conclusion, I ask the City Council not to reject all the bids for the Marina Branch Library project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Manaka, you may unmute yourself.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Menika Mahajan. I'm a resident of the Mulford Gardens neighborhood. I pass by the Mulford Marina, what I call the mini library, frequently, but I've rarely been inside due to the extremely limited public hours. I personally would like to utilize the library weekly and would if it were open during any evening or weekend hours. I would also value community meeting spaces, which are tricky with the size of that library as it is currently constructed. The council did speak recently about equity and access in the prior item, and gradually making this library obsolete, I believe, contradicts that objective. I see libraries as important for children and adults and would like to see the Mulford branch expand. More books, more space for people to connect and form community bonds, more hours of operation so people with different work schedules can access it, and kids can go to the library to do their homework or get tutoring after school. My understanding is that what I've just described is what has been planned, designed, and bid on. And as a previous speaker noted, the state has committed over $4 million already. Such a substantial external funding may not be available again. So please vote in support of advancing the planned project and revitalizing literacy and community engagement via an active library location in the Marina area of San Leandro. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Jesse Perales, you may unmute yourself.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Jesse Perales, and I'm a 28-year member of Local 713 in Alameda County. I do live in Hayward, but my wife does remind me for the last 17 years why we haven't moved to San Leandro. But I am in favor of not authorizing the city manager to reject all bids for the Mulford Marina Branch Library. We have a very qualified contractor who has bid on this and has done the hard work. They pay honest living wages, our carpenter wages. They have health and welfare. We have carpenters. I got 28 years left. I could do 2 years working at that library and retire, while we have the apprentice who spoke earlier today in person. Thank you for doing that. Who can advance their career working, like say close to home. So thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed Hernandez, you may unmute yourself.
Good evening, council, staff, and thank you for the time. Libraries are more than books. They shape our future. The Mulford Marina branch must be redeveloped and the South branch restored from storage to service. With declining literacy rates, we must act. Children in library programs are 3 times more likely to read at grade level. This is an investment in their future. Libraries return up to $5 for every dollar invested, and you're hearing that tonight. They support job seekers, local businesses, and workforce development. Cutting them weakens our economy. Libraries are lifelines in emergencies, providing shelter, information, and resources. Let's leverage funding from the local organizations, even like Ava Community Energy, to make them resilient hubs. a city that values kindness, and reading is a city that thrives. Let's fund the redevelopment of the Marina Mulford Branch and reopen the South Branch now. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny Madsen, you may unmute yourself.
So thank you for giving Jenny Madsen the time to speak on this. I'm probably the only person here tonight who was actually in a lot of the outreach meetings back in 2018, 2017. I live a block away from this library. I go downtown because that is where more books are that I want to read. So I use the downtown library. I drive across town to get to it because this one was never open from the time I moved here 20 years ago, enough time for me to actually be able to get inside. I believe libraries are really, really, really important. And yet I believe that this design was overdone, and putting it in a flood zone was questionable. And I made all these objections way back in the day, but I want to support my council member because what he says is true. The city promised this to this neighborhood and they've just dragged it out. This is an issue of trust. Now, if it's too expensive to build, maybe that needs to be looked at, but that of course will cost more money to redesign. But not doing anything is a violation of the trust. And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, there is no more public comment.
So I'll close public comment. At this point in time, we will begin discussion of the first item. So I'll call it 4B1. I think I have a recusal. Councilmember Bolt, if you'd like to return. 4B1. So Councilmember Azevedo.
Yes, I'm recusing myself from this agenda item because I have a real property financial interest in my residence, which is in proximity to the following Hesperian project. This is project number 1.
Okay, with that, you are excused and we will text you when we're done with this item. So is there, I think there's a brief staff presentation on this item. Yes, no?
Excuse me, Honorable Mayor and members of the council, we do have a few slides that would be presented before we get into the first project list. So council members would not have to recuse themselves for the first few slides.
Let me just think about how far you're going to go into this.
Like about the first 6 before we get into the project list.
Okay, let's go quickly through those, please.
Sure. Sorry for the confusion. So good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. My name is Jason Imai. I'm the city engineer for the Public Works Engineering Division. With me tonight, I have engineering manager Erwin Ching and associate civil engineer Mark Gorlaka. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to provide the council with an initial look at the projects recommended for funding as part of the Capital Improvement Program 10-year plan for fiscal years 26 through 35, or CIP, and allow the council the opportunity to provide staff with feedback prior to presentation of the final CIP for adoption in July. For this initial look at the CIP, we will first provide an overview of the capital improvement process, present staff's projections on the various anticipated funding sources for the CIP, and review the CIP budget guidelines used to help assign funding to projects. Now, the majority of the discussion would then be spent reviewing the project staff recommends funding with the biannual budget for fiscal years 26 and 27. Now, 10-year capital improvement plan identifies and selects capital improvement projects for potential funding. Projects in the first 2 fiscal years, in this case, fiscal years 26 and 27, are funded by the biannual budget. Now, the outer 8 years serve as a projection of projects that could be funded based on anticipated funding revenue. And types of projects in the CIP can include street, park, building construction, maintenance of existing facilities, and feasibility studies. and general projects that involve expenditures of 50,000 or more are included in this CIP. Now on to project funding. The major funding sources for the 10-year CIP can be broken down into 5 general categories. First up are capital funds, which are funds transferred to the CIP from unallocated general funds as part of the biannual budget. Next are impact fees. For the CIP, we're looking at utilizing development impact fees, which are assessed to new private developments to mitigate those developments, the impacts those developments may have on traffic and roadway infrastructure. Now, gas tax funds are comprised of all direct local distributions funds from the state and the Alameda County Transportation Commission and include Highway User Tax Account, or HUTA, and what is commonly referred to by the general public as gas tax. The Road Maintenance and Rehabilitation Account, or RMRA, established in 2017 by Senate Bill 1, and Vehicle Registration Fees, or VRF. Typically, gas tax funds can only be used for transportation projects within the public right-of-way. Next, we have revenue from Alameda County Measures BB, 1 cent sales tax. Now, over half of all revenues generated from Measure BB are distributed to cities as direct local distributions to be used specifically towards capital maintenance projects on local streets and roads and bike and safety. And lastly, we have other various outside funding sources, which include transportation and other grants, but also the enterprise funds from our water pollution control plant. Now, this table, let's spend a few seconds on, presents anticipated CIP funding revenue over the upcoming 26-27 biannual budget cycle. During development of the previous CIPs, projects were fully funded from conceptual design through construction prior to project initiation. This resulted in construction funds being held or tied up in projects accounts during the initial design development process. Now, starting with the most recent CIP, focus was instead shifted to funding work in the fiscal year it would occur based on availability of staffing and resources. Projects were funded only if appropriate staffing and resources were available to complete them during the biannual budget cycle, and were funded in the fiscal year the work was anticipated to occur. A byproduct of this is that we were able to establish over $10 million in fund balances across many of our typical CIP funding source accounts. This is reflected in the beginning balance amounts shown in column B. Because the engineering division was recently able to augment our project development team with recent hires, staff recommendation is to now start applying these fund balances towards projects during the upcoming biannual budget cycle. Now, rows 4, 9, 14, and 20 in columns B and C present the anticipated CIP funding revenue for fiscal years 26 and 27, respectively. Row 15 reflects how gas tax revenue has traditionally been used to fund Public Works Maintenance's operating budget, specifically eligible costs related to street maintenance operations and staff time. Now, shown a combination of HUTA and SB1 gas tax distributions totaling approximately $4.6 to $4.7 million per fiscal year will be used to fund Public Works Maintenance's operating budget. In total, we project approximately $29.5 million of funds available to assign to CIP projects over the next 2 fiscal years. Next, similar to previous biannual budget and CIP cycle, staff has identified various policies to help facilitate and guide the evaluation of projects for potential CIP funding, with many of the policies from last budget cycle carried over to the current process. These include focusing funding towards completing existing projects that are either in progress or on hold, but require funding in subsequent phases to complete, leveraging grant funding or funding the required local match when grant funds are received, limiting the number of new projects, but instead focusing on addressing the city's existing list of needs, which would involve preserving our existing assets before they fail, and placing an emphasis on one of the most critical assets to preserve, which are roofs on our public facilities. There was also a focus on supporting projects with potential to generate new revenue, such as impact fees, and to address projects mandated by federal, state, or local legal regulatory requirements. And lastly, while we will look to strategically utilize our fund balances, staff will also aim to preserve a level of CIP funds in reserve to better respond to other and unanticipated costs. Now, with that, I will turn it over to Engineering Manager Erwin Ching to present staff's recommended project list.
Just for the benefit of the public who cannot see online, we have Councilmember Azevedo excusing himself now at this point in time, and we will call him back in when we are complete with this portion.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members, Council staff, and the public. I'm Erwin Ching, Engineering Manager of the Public Works Department Engineering Division. It's my pleasure to present to you this evening the proposed CIP budget for fiscal year 26 and 27. Before I begin, I would like to state that the city will be segmenting the CIP project lists and will be considering 3 separate project lists of the CIP in which various council members have real property and/or business interests, with council members recusing themselves as necessary. To determine which segmented project list on the CIP would be considered first, staff utilized a random means of selection to identify the order in which each project list would be considered. In this instance, the project lists will be considered in the following order: Project List C, A, and then B. After each project list is considered and a final vote is taken, the City Council will then consider a project list composing of the balance of the CIP as a whole. The first of the segmented project list is Project List C for the Hesperian Bike Lane Gap Closure Project. The Hesperian Bike Lane Gap Closure project proposes to construct a road diet and install protected Class 4 bike lanes on Hesperian Boulevard between East 14th Street and Bayfair Drive, upgrading the existing Class 2 bike lanes. The project aligns with the city's Bike and Ped Master Plan, which recommends separate bikeways along this segment. The project will increase safety for vulnerable users and aligns with the city's Vision Zero policy to reduce and eliminate severe and fatal injuries. The budget being requested is for the design phase only. The total project cost is $820,000, which includes the grant received from ACTC in the amount of $325,000, and therefore an additional $495,000 is required to fully fund the design. Staff recommends Project List C to be included in the CIP for funding in fiscal year 26 and to approve an additional $495,000 from the general fund and gas tax. This concludes my presentation for Project List C. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. So we'll take both questions and comments, and obviously if there are none, that's fine too. And I would accept a motion if there are no questions. I'm going to start with Councilmember Bolt.
Yeah, I'd like to move this item unless there are questions on
Okay. Councilmember Aguilar?
I'd like to second.
Okay. Councilmember Simon?
I have a question.
Please proceed.
Yeah, my question is beautification of this thoroughfare on this project. And just looking at Hesperian as a whole, unincorporated Alameda County, San Lorenzo is quite beautiful, Hesperian. And just curious what type of beautification considerations are in this project? And if not, in general in our city, where are those concepts?
I'd like to clarify, Councilmember Simon, where around the city?
Like if you drive, it's pretty stark difference. If you drive in unincorporated Alameda County, right next door, Hesperian Boulevard near Grant Avenue, where the old Mervyn's is, and it's beautifully landscaped, Hesperian Boulevard. I mean, really nice. And then you go into San Leandro, and it's not so nice. So just considering, since we're upgrading now, are we putting any thought into at least getting somewhere close to unincorporated, and we're a city.
Well, thank you for the question, Councilmember Simon. So the project consists of installing Class 4 bikeways on Hesperian, which includes vertical barriers that would prevent vehicles from encroaching into bicycle lanes. Whenever possible, the vertical barriers, and as space would allow, those vertical barriers can be converted into landscaped area to help beautify and make that corridor on Hesperian more green. However, that is dependent on the space. Sometimes, as I showed earlier in a couple of slides, you saw a picture whereby the vertical element is just a very narrow island. In that instance, there's no opportunity for us to do landscaping or plant any trees.
Okay, yeah, just looking at other cities like Hayward, Mission Boulevard, they've done bike lanes with very narrow areas, and I believe they've got some beautification. So just wanted to get that message out. Fully supportive of this, but want to keep beauty in mind too. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Did you want to elaborate a little bit?
Yes, thank you. It's a good question, Councilmember Simon, City Engineer J. City again. So this Hesperian Gap project is one of many on one of two on Hesperian Boulevard. It's a very short segment. That's it. Hence the Gap project title. It's from 150th to Bayfair Drive, but there is a subsequent project that will dovetail on this that will go from Bayfair Drive down to the city limits. And that project has a lot more extensive landscaping in it. There will be a landscape median, and that's because there's a lot more right-of-way along that portion. Unfortunately, as you know, around the triangle, there's very constricted right-of-way. So in order to construct all of the complete streets improvements, it leaves very little space for landscaping, but you will soon, the project is going through its last phases. We're coordinating with UP on one of the railroad crossings, but as soon as we get the final okay, that project will move forward ahead and you will see a lot more abundant landscape and median treatment along Hesperian, along the rest of the corridor.
At this point in time, if there's no further discussion, we can vote on this item. And this would be the motion by Councilmember Bolt with a second by Councilmember Aguilar to add, to approve the additional funding.
That was the wrong button. All votes are in. Motion passes 5-1-1 with Councilmember Azevedo recused and Councilmember Vice Mayor Bowen absent.
At this point in time, we will move on to the next portion. We're going to have Councilmember Bolt excuse himself because he is recusing himself from this item. So we'll have him leave the room and then we will text you.
The next of the project list is.
So we're taking a pause. We're not even going to recess. We're just going to take a pause waiting for Councilmember Azevedo to walk back in. Just asking if you can go to page 37 on this item. Okay, so at this point in time, we are going to proceed. Councilmember Azevedo has been provided a couple of minutes' notice, and we're not quite sure where he is, so we're going to just proceed. So as I had mentioned earlier, the City Council received, each member participated in discussions regarding the full details of this decision, and we have discussed in basically small meetings with the city manager and the team, the nature of the challenges that we face. So what I'm going to do at this point in time, before I offer my own thoughts on this, is open it up to discussion by, or any final questions, additional questions that haven't been already explored. So let's start with that kind of dialogue. If nobody has any, I certainly can weigh in on this. So I'll just look down the row. Starting with Councilmember Viveros Walton. And for those online, Councilmember Azevedo has returned.
Thank you. I think it's also important for the public to know that we reviewed the presentation that is publicly available. There was nothing that was presented to us that is not publicly available by the deadline. Just wanted to clarify that. So I really appreciate the staff report, particularly because it's important for us to have all of the information that we need in order to make decisions. And so although some of the information that is included in the presentation was hard to hear, it's important, and I really appreciate staff's willingness to come to the table with hard to hear information that obviously is a concern to me and to many people in the community. So thank you. I think there's a couple of things specific to this project, and then I'll save my kind of general CIP comments in terms of the kind of the overall project and projects and the list. I'll start off with my questions. Let me just look through my notes. So in terms of the construction schedule, there's no construction schedule here, but there are some schedule considerations on page 24 of the presentation. And I know that one of the grant requirements from the state grant was that construction was to be completed by a certain deadline. Keeping in mind these schedule considerations, are we still able to meet the March 31st milestone to be able to keep these state funds? If we were to not reject bids and award something today?
The schedule would be really tight. March of 2026 is just less than a year away. However, we are taking close tabs on the requirements of the grant and are looking into requesting for an extension for this date, and also making sure that the requirements of the grant is not really to complete the project, but to spend the grant money, which are two different things. If we're able to expedite the spending the money during construction before the grant due date, then we would be meeting the grant requirement.
When was the grant awarded?
Good evening, Council. This is Brian Simons, Library Director. I would have to look specifically at what date, but I believe it wasn't until 22, late 22, if memory serves, that it was awarded. So really, we're actually closer to 2023, if memory serves.
Thank you. So again, you gave us some hard information, and I think what I'm going to share with you might also be hard to hear from if I were to put my staff hat on. If we were awarded a grant in 2022, early 2023, And we're 2 years later and we are up against a deadline. I guess my question is, why was this information not brought back to the council so that we would not be at risk of either not meeting, not complying with the grant requirements, or hurrying the project so that we don't have to ask for that? Can I ask a little bit about between end of 2022, early 2023, when we were awarded the grant, what was the progress made up until now? And maybe what were some of the delays?
Some of the reasons for the delays was staff turnover. The project was transferred from one staff to the other, and when staff left, then essentially the new engineer would take on the new project. Given the timeline, I believe the engineer tried his best and was creative in trying to be able to meet the deadlines. And in addition to that, in our conversations between the library and the grantor, like there seems to be opportunity to extend the grant. It's something that we are exploring. And the plans at this point is ready, and bids are in. So
One last question. Tell me more a little bit about the timeline if we were to reject staff's recommendation and move forward with one of the bidders. Would we be able, and I just want to be crystal clear, are we able to either closely or hit the March 31st, 2026 deadline?
it'll be challenging, and I think the first step that we need to do is to look into extending the grant deadline to provide us some wiggle room. What staff has employed is to be creative. We've started bidding out the project and also concurrently working with the utility companies to get the permits ready and aligned with the construction of the project.
Okay, I have more questions, but actually the screen went dead on me. So I can't put myself on the queue again.
Okay, so we've got next in queue, Councilmember Simon. Are you able to turn yourself on, punch in? And it appears not. So for members of the public, our system appears to be rebooting. Would you like to come down to this first one? If you can hand the wireless mic to Councilmember Simon, please. Madam Clerk. Okay, thank you. You're just frozen because the system's off.
Okay.
Thank you. Is this a question and comment period?
Everything.
Okay. First off, I want to say that I support moving forward with the library project. When I saw this come up, this was a no-brainer to me. We need libraries in our city, period. My son is now 18 years old. I heard a commenter as well, had a son the same year. My son was very young, like a year or less, going to the library programs. Now he just finished his first year at UC Berkeley, is doing very well. And I attribute that a lot to the library and the library staff, the facilities that were there. And I want other children to have this opportunity. And I believe that we will find a way. We'll find a way to bridge this funding gap. And I think we can be very creative in that from an operational standpoint. There's lots of different ways to be creative. Plus, this goes back to the previous meeting. Our city needs money, not just for this project. Our roads are $250 million behind. We need money and we have to be creative on that. So I wouldn't let this, funding deficit from an operation and maintenance standpoint stop us, because this is a lifetime of a project that we're looking at. multiple lifetimes. This could last 100 years, this building. So I'm fully supportive of it and definitely would like to see it move forward, which is opposite of the staff direction. But I do have a question though on the bidding process and the additive alternatives. The city standard curb and gutter was an additive alternative. Just curious, why was that additive if it's curbs and gutters?
It was a it was an additive alternative to the bid because we have a current project that's coming up this summer to install curb ramps and sidewalks, and we are utilizing a different funding source for that project, and that project can take on the sidewalk and curb and gutter project for the Bulford Library.
Your slide shows recommended that you include it. Are you not including it, or are you including it with the low bid contractor?
It will not be included with the low bid contractor.
I'm sorry, would or would not?
Oh, it would. It
Would be included. Thank you.
It would include.
Within the bid price, or as an addition?
With the bid price.
That sounds a little opposite than what I just heard. I heard that there's another contract somewhere else in the city that you're going to include this with. If that's the case, it seems like that money would not be included with the low bidder.
Sorry, I can offer some clarification. There was an option to do the project, the curb gutter and sidewalk project with other funds, specifically CDBG. But CDBG has some additional requirements regarding federalization of the project. So if we could do it with the project, if we could afford to do it with the project with SB1 funds and funding tied to the project, that would be more, staff would think it's more beneficial, but we had to see the prices come in before we would make that choice.
Okay, so just so I fully understand right now, is it included in the bid or is it not?
It would have been staff's recommendation to include it in the contract with the base bid.
Okay. All right, and then the decoratives.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I really want a very clear record. I heard the answers. It would have been staff's recommendation to include, but when the bidder bid, $6.9 million is the lowest bid. Are they installing the standard curbs and gutters? Is that part of what they're bidding to do?
The bid included a base bid, which is the base bid without the alternate bids, and then they bid a price separately for each of the alternate additive items. Based on the separate bids received for the additive alternate items, staff analyzed the prices and the pros and cons of adding those items to the base bid. So based on that analysis, we decided to add that item and the one item for the lighting of the sign.
So again, just to make sure we have a really clear record, that would mean that the new lowest bid would be approximately $7.3 million ballpark. It's not 6.9 anymore.
No, I'm going to look to our project manager, Mark Golaka, but I believe the $6.9 million that we have is the base bid. I'm going to look for a head nod, base bid plus additive alternates, right?
The base bid actually was 6.771 million. And the city standard curb gutter and sidewalk was 204,000.
And just to clarify, the determination of low bidder is based on the base bid only, and it does not include any of the additive alternates.
Okay, sorry, Councilmember Simon, but I just want to make sure we had a really clear record. We're talking about potentially approving 6.9 million approximately dollars, and that will include the two items that staff had recommended if you had recommended moving forward with the project.
Right. Yeah, slide 23, I think, gives some good illustration of that too. So thank you. And the decorative ceiling in a children's library, could you explain a bit more what that included and what that was like?
It was a lighted ceiling in the children's alcove. I know Brian may want to talk more on it, but the bids came in higher than we thought for that item. I'll turn it over to Brian.
Thank you. Yeah, let me describe that a little bit for you. It was a perforated ceiling, basically like ceiling tiles. However, light would shine through. There was a decorative pattern that was, for lack of a better word, laser cut into the decorative paneling that would let that light through. And then the lights also could be adjusted different colors and things. So for I believe it was $70,000, we looked at that as something that in order to get the project through and within budget, we thought we could live with your general standard lighting. It's a very small space. So that was why we did not recommend the children's lighting. For that price, we thought we'd rather do without it and have the project move forward than that be something that hangs it up.
Yeah, my thought on that, I'm looking at all your added alternatives and the exterior trellis for outdoor seating, that's outside. That could be added at any time because it's outside. It's easy to build. But this decorative ceiling is not like that easy to build because you're already building it, and it's going to be more expensive later to retrofit and build something when it's already been constructed. So if we're going in this project for this amount, it's only going to cost more later. And it sounds like for budgetary reasons, it was cut out, but not for a needs reason. I'd like to consider including that decorative ceiling if the council decides to move forward, because now is the time, because it likely won't ever happen if we don't do it now. Thank you.
Councilmember Aguilar, please. Oh, sorry. If you can just punch on. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Gonzalez. My question is, when we first got bids for this, or the estimate, many years ago, where were we at with this project? Was it an estimated $4 million?
We were, this project, it has a long history, and there is before the grant and after the grant. So after the grant in 2022, 23, I can't recall the exact number, but we were close to budget for the project. Well, $10 million total is the total project budget. And right now we're at, if we included the additive alternates that we recommended, we were at 10.6 million.
And we're currently going with the lowest bidder.
Correct.
So as somebody who has been a product of going to the public library, as somebody whose family, I was on free and reduced lunch, the library was something that was very key in me staying focused and focusing on school, getting involved. I just don't want to discount our community, especially in the marina. I think this is something that's been long anticipated, and also something that will create dignified jobs, union jobs here in San Leandro. We had folks that came and spoke publicly that they would be able to work and in San Leandro, and as somebody whose parents were both a part of the union, and somebody who I was a part of a union who was provide a dignified job. I think this is something that I will support. I like what Councilmember Simon had mentioned with regards to the decorative ceiling in the children's library. I too would also recommend adding that with regards to this proposed budget. But that's just, that's just my comment. But I definitely support this. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Azevedo, please.
Yes, first of all, I want to thank the community for coming out, all my union brothers and sisters and everyone that lives out here. Thank you for coming out. And I fully support this. Libraries are real important to our community. I remember as a kid going to the marina, leaving the marina, and then my grandfather would ask, "Do you want to go by the library?" And the library was right there. So I remember going to this library as a kid. And libraries are real important. I have a little free library in my front yard, so libraries are really important, and I fully support this. I've already asked several questions during other meetings, so that's all my comments. Thank you.
Councilmember Rivera Walton.
Thank you. I just wanted to kind of double click on the decorative ceiling for the children's library or the children's part. I'm just wondering, just in terms of I'm concerned about the timing. So I'm concerned about how much longer would that add to the project? And if it's insignificant, then it's insignificant. So you're saying it doesn't, once it's part of it, it'll just be concurrent with the work. So it's not going to add any additional time?
I'm thinking the question is tied to the expiration of or the due date for the grant funding.
Yes.
Yes. So I'll look to Library Director Simon whether or Mark Goralka whether the decorative ceiling is eligible for grant reimbursement.
I believe it is. We're beyond the minimum, I think, match that we need to have, but the grant only funds the building, not so much the landscape and the site work. So as part of the, it does have, we won't be in danger of losing any grant funding if, whether we install the ceiling or not. It has some very particular requirements about shelving and whether it's attached to the building or not.
And then does the ceiling provide any natural light, or is it just electrical and it's kind of like a...
Thank you. It's a good question. It's just electrical, but there's a lot of other natural light coming into the building. The majority of the windows are, if not floor to ceiling, very close to floor to ceiling, and it's a very tall ceiling. So a big portion of the library is glass. So there will be a lot of natural light coming into the facility. So this is an area where the ceiling actually drops down because it's like a little alcove. And that's where there would be less lighting, still windows above, but it's a little bit of a drop down. So you're a little closer to the ceiling. And that's why it was proposed as decorative originally.
Got it. Thank you. I would like to make a motion to move the project forward. But actually, I don't know where my colleagues are, but we are in really tight budget. We're making some budgetary decisions, and I know that 70,000 within the scope of the project, it doesn't seem like a lot. But I think that we are, if this gets voted through, we'll be keeping our commitment to the community. And I think that the building is going to be beautiful, even if we don't have the decorative lighting. And the contingency already includes 15%. So I just would like to, I know, on a $10 million project, $70,000 seems like insignificant, but $70,000 could go towards programming, could go towards the library. So I would like to make a motion to go with the lowest bidder, Giant Construction, and to not do any of the not recommended additives. So to be clear, it would include number 2, the monument site lighting for $6,000, and number 4, the city standard curb, gutter, and sidewalk driveway, which is recommended to be included. The other two, we could always seek a community partner who can do a beautiful mural inside the library on the wall or on the roof. We could work with other community partners to do the outside seating, since it's not critical to the construction of the project. So if there's a second.
So I'll second that, but I would like to offer my thoughts first. Well, I second that, but let's go with some thoughts. I'm particularly, I think, concerned or focused on the social contract. We have a social contract with people, right? We made a promise as a body, not literally the people sitting here in front of you today, but we, rightfully or wrongfully, we made a promise. And part of the challenges that government faces in building and maintaining credibility is failure to deliver on promises made. And that's something that I'm particularly focused on as a city. I think that we need to make clear promises, and we need to keep those promises. We need to deliver on our promises. And so because we have this promise that we've made, even though it may on net cost us some money, I think we need to bear that extra pain, that consequence, in order to fulfill a promise that we made. So that, to me, is paramount. And I want that to be the standard in San Leandro going forward. We make a promise, we are going to deliver on that promise. I do think that I am concerned about the timeline, but my attitude is pretty simple. I've seen huge buildings built in relatively short periods of time. I'm hiring union labor. I expect the absolute best. The mayor of San Leandro says we will get this done on time. That means that right now we need to be working with PG&E tomorrow, even though we don't have a signed contract yet. It means that we need to lay out all those contingencies, and our construction management team needs to say, here's all the places that this is going to get derailed. It will be awesome if we get extra time, but we should not be operating as if we have extra time. And no disrespect to my builders, but we're building a rectangular box. This isn't a particularly complicated design with many angles and custom corners, a dodecahedron on top of a pentagon surrounded by some other fancy shape. We're building a rectangle. So as far as I am concerned, and I've heard this from other council members, I've heard this from union members, I've heard this from people in other locations, cities, this is not a hard project. And so we expect it to be done on time, and to be very blunt, I'd say under budget. There really shouldn't be a need for a contingency for such a simple project. And so our part of this social contract and honoring that is making that commitment that says, yes, we made a promise, and whether or not it's economic today, we're going to look past that. But the flip side of that social contract is that we expect our union brothers and sisters to deliver an on-time, excellent state-of-the-art project that makes everybody in the city proud, and that we're able to use this an example of true partnership for delivering value to our residents. So with that, I don't know if there's any further discussion, but I'd love to take a vote. Go ahead. We have one other thing. Hold on. Okay, so just for the sake of legal clarity, through your motion, what we are doing is making a recommendation to accept the bid, because we would need a formal resolution to move forward into contract. So that's what I am seconding, and what I'm assuming that you're moving, because we literally don't have the resolution as part of our packet. So just to be really precise in our language. And if you'd like some clarification, please, now is the time.
Yeah, excuse me, Honorable Mayor and members of the council, Jason Imai, City Engineer. We do need certain clarification to say that we are appropriating the additional $629,610 shown on slide 1 to cover the project costs listed and where that money would be coming from to transfer into the project.
And so I just want to be really clear about a couple of things. That would only be needed if we fully exercise the contingency.
That is correct. It includes 15% contingency.
And that would only be needed if we spend the $2-point-something million on management, administration, et cetera.
Correct.
Okay. So again, my encouragement, I'm going to say it again to my contractor. We expect this to be on time, under budget. It should be a fantastic project. Everyone should be proud. The same thing to city staff. We expect, because this is a very compressed timeline and it's not going to run for 2 to 3 years, we really expect people to cut costs. So if we need to appropriate, I'm going to turn to city manager for this. Do we need to appropriate extra money in our guidance before we begin, or can we wait and see?
I think with your guidance, you're authorizing that we will need to appropriate extra money. And when we bring back the contract, we will tell you where the money's coming from.
Well, it would, yeah. So if you make a motion tonight to award the contract to the lowest responsible bidder, you could also make a motion to appropriate the $629,610 to the project budget to account for the potential costs list on page.
I don't mean to be rude, but that wasn't my question.
Oh.
My question is, do we need to do that? Because what I think I heard was that the contingency, if there were no contingency, we wouldn't need the 600. And if we didn't spend all of the $2+ million of internal money for administration, we wouldn't need that extra 600K. So just as a requirement, do we need at this point in time to allocate 600 or have a motion even to allocate 600,000 in order to move this project forward? Of what we do today.
Understood. That is a excellent clarification. I'm sorry for misunderstanding. So no, you could award the project as is. However, if there are costs associated with the project that uses up the available contingency, so just doing the math, so if you don't award the additional $630,000 to round numbers up, the contingency drops, right, to 400 something or 300 something $1,000. So once we do exhaust that or exhaust the construction administration includes inspection time and staff time to administer the project. So once that funds are used up, if potentially, as you said, if there are unforeseen items that cause that contingency to be used up, we would come back to council for additional authority. But technically, you could award the project without the additional 629,000. I'm looking at my staff for head nod. Technically, you could with a lower contingency.
Maybe just to be clear, the 2.7 million or so, that it's not construction, but there are things, there's a special inspection, there's a building department permit fees. There are a lot of security, Denelect alarm. Those things are factored in there, but in the estimate, there's a 15% contingency was about $1 million. So without the 600,000, we would be at about 400,000 or about 8% contingency for the actual construction contract.
Yeah.
I also wanted to add, Mayor, that out of the 2.4 million, only about 330,000 is actually going to construction management expense. There are expenses there as part of that cost that includes furniture for the library and other costs that Engineer Mark Goralka can get into if needed.
So again, the likely place that you would see the savings, as you pointed out, Mayor, would be the reduction. It would be a reduction in allowed authorized contingency, and we understand the intent. But if there are unanticipated events or items that need to come additional costs, we would come back to the council for that authority.
And I think that this council would be receptive to that. I'm quite concerned that, we're hiring the best. We're hiring union labor. So I think we're expecting things to go well. That's our expectation. Let's see where it goes. So does your motion still stand? And my second still stands. At this point in time, I see council members still in queue. Did you have a question? Councilmember Simon, please proceed.
Yeah, just from a timing perspective, I know we have to move fast to make this grant deadline. And I think coming back to the council could slow things down. So I would be concerned about us not authorizing the additional funding today because I don't want any holdups to impede our ability to obtain grant funding. So I'd like to give staff what they're asking for to keep us moving quickly. My second comment would be, I appreciate the comments from my colleague about saving money, and I understand. However, if we are efficient, if we do come in under budget with our contingencies, I would like us to consider that decorative ceiling as change order if you still have change order left during this project, because I really think it would be important for our kids to really enjoy this facility. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, so at this point in time, I've got a question, I think, perhaps for Director Marquisas. Between now and where we will be, let's say, 4 months from today, October, November. By then, do you think you'll have a good sense of whether you need the contingency?
Between now and November, good evening, Sheila Marquisas, Public Works Director. Thank you for the question, Mayor. By then, we would have a better idea of what will be ahead of us, because by then we would have been in deep conversations with our grantor, with our utility companies. We would be working closely with the contractors and also our building departments. We would now have the whole team engaged. So what would really help us out is to minimize, all the other risks and possible delays, so that we can communicate to our grantors that we have the full authority to proceed as quickly as we can with this project.
So question for city manager. If we appropriate the money, is that the same thing as authorizing its expenditure? Because I think one of the things that this council has raised questions about is the fact that we're concerned about cost overruns.
The answer to your question is yes.
Yes, which part? I'm sorry.
I'm only saying one question is, if you appropriate the money, are you authorizing its expenditure? Was the only question I heard.
Okay. So then I still have concerns, because if we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars on at least what I'm perceiving to be a relatively simple project, I think in a time where we are budget constrained and we are already concerned just as a city financially, right? Staff recommendation was don't do this. So I'm quite concerned about not keeping close to this project. And I'm going to turn to my council members. I've heard Councilmember Simon say, let's just appropriate the money. Other thoughts, other concerns about how we manage this risk, given where we are? Councilmember Regular.
Thank you, Mayor Gonzalez. It's, as someone who worked in construction, there are a lot of unanticipated costs that pop up. And so, with the additional CIP appropriation needed, I would recommend that we approve that and give that to staff, so that, we can move. Like we said, we're on a timeline. We have to move quickly. We understand it looks like a simple project on paper, but there's a lot of work that goes in behind that. Sometimes these simple projects can be more complicated than what it looks like. And so with this additional CIP appropriation, I think, I would like to make a substitute motion to include the additional CIP of $629,610.
Would you be fine with that being an amendment, or does it have to be a substitute motion? Friendly amendment to.
A friendly amendment.
So Councilmember Viotis Walton, would you accept that amendment?
Yes. Yes.
I accept that as a second. So at this point in time, can we please vote?
All votes are in. Motion passes 511 with Councilmember Bolt recused and Vice Mayor Bowen absent.
At this point in time, we will move to our next item. We'll have Councilmember Bolt return, and then for this final item, needs to be recused. Councilmember Simon, correct?
Yes, I'm going to recuse myself.
You don't have to, right? That's your decision.
Yes, currently I'm recusing myself from this project because of real property financial interests in my residence. However, that will be reevaluated with the FPPC for later consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening again, Honorable City Mayor, council members, council staff, and the public. The next project list is Project List B, which contains a project, the Llewellyn Boulevard Class 4 Bikeway. The Llewellyn Boulevard Bikeway project will construct a road diet including Class 4 protected bike lanes with raised medians along Llewellyn Boulevard between Wicks Boulevard and Washington Avenue, and would include installation of new curb ramps, signing, and striping. The project aligns with the city's bike and ped master plan to install a separated bikeway along the segment of Llewellyn Boulevard. The project will increase safety for vulnerable users and would align with the city's Vision Zero policy to reduce and eliminate the severe and fatal injuries. The project will fund the design and construction of the Llewellyn Boulevard Class 4 Bikeway. The design phase is scheduled for fiscal year 26. Total project cost is at $675,000, which includes the grant received from ACTC in the amount of $234,000, therefore still requiring an additional $441,000 to fully fund the design. The construction phase is scheduled for fiscal year 2027. Total project cost is $3.29 million, which includes grant received from ACTC in the amount of $1.97 million, for which additional $1.32 million is required to fully fund the construction of the project. The total funds required is $1.76 million. Staff recommends to include the Llewellyn Boulevard Class 4 Bikeway design and construction in the fiscal year 2026 and fiscal year 2027 CIP funded project, and approve an additional $1.76 million from General Fund, Measure BB, and gas tax. This concludes my presentation, and I'm opening the floor for any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm going to council members for questions or comments. Councilmember Aguilar.
No questions or comments. Just I'd like to move the item.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Aguilar. Councilmember Azevedo.
Yes, I'd like to second it.
With a second by Councilmember Azevedo. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 511 with Councilmember Simon recused and Vice Mayor Bowen absent.
Okay, so I'm going to look to my council members we haven't had an official bio break, and looking at the clock, I suspect that we're going to run through our 10 o'clock deadline. Just given the types of questions and the number of questions and exploration discussion, and what we have left is a little bit, a little bit substantial. Would you like to take your break now at 10 o'clock, or just have people walk out?
Just walk out. I'd rather just get through the meeting.
Okay. So that being said, do I have a motion to extend at this point in time?
Motion to extend to 10:15.
Okay, so we'll go to 10:15. Do I have a second on that? Second from Councilmember Bolt, please vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 502 with, or 511 with Councilmember, I guess 502. Councilmember Simon's absent. And then Vice Mayor Bowen is absent. Sorry.
Okay, and just for a clear record, Councilmember was recused and has not returned into the room. I'm assuming that somebody has reached out to him, has texted him. Yes, okay. So why don't you give him just one more minute, and then we will proceed. And then just from a time management perspective, I see that you've got 47 minutes and 37 seconds on that clock. How much of that time do you anticipate using and what remains?
I have about 20 more slides. I would say maybe, hopefully 15 minutes.
Okay. Just big picture, trying to understand where we are. Okay, if you can please proceed.
Up next is the remaining CIP project list recommended for funding. These projects have been grouped into the following categories. The categories are CIP as it relates to building and facilities, parks, residential support program, sanitary sewer, roadway network, storm drain, citywide bicycle and pedestrian improvements, traffic signal improvements, and plan updates and studies. An overview of the proposed budget per category is summarized in this table. The total proposed CIP budget is 30.7 million and 23 million in fiscal years 26 and 27 respectively. In the next several slides, I will be providing a brief description of the projects under each of these categories. The following tables also identifies the different funding sources that will be funding the project. Furthermore, the project have been selected using the CIP guidelines presented earlier. Reserve funds have been maintained for the unanticipated project costs and adjustments. A fund balance reserve in the amount of $1 million have been set aside for fiscal year 26 and $2 million for fiscal year 27. Under building and facilities, budget for building major maintenance are for replacement of building components that have reached the end of life. Components that, this includes painting and flooring replacements, HVAC, and other similar expenses. For roofing repairs, this will fund the roof replacement for several buildings in the Public Works Service Center, the low roof portion of Manor Library, and metal roof at Fire Station number 9. The ADA transition plan will address ADA accessibility at various city buildings and facilities. Budget has not been allocated for the parking lot at this time for parking lot repairs until the second year of the biennial budget. Parking lots are rated the same way as roadways using a PCI index. The current average PCI index of our parking lots are currently at 42, which is at risk. Similar to road projects, it is better to maintain and maintain the parking lots on a regular basis. Otherwise, if it goes in disrepair, it'll be more expensive to fix. Under the resident support programs, these funds request these funds will fund the request of residents to address speeding and cut through traffic in their streets. The Bike and Ped Support Program will help fund bicycle education and outreach. And the Sidewalk Program will help residents take advantage of a lower unit cost from a larger project that is managed by the city. The projects under the citywide bicycle and pedestrian network improvements are projects that will install bicycle facilities and pedestrian safety enhancements, which are consistent with the Bike and Ped Master Plan. And these projects will be located at Fairway Drive, Bancroft Avenue, William Street, and will enhance pedestrian crosswalk safety at multiple intersections in the city. Note that a total of $958,000 of this budget are from grant funding sources. I would like to emphasize this slide. The annual pavement allocation is estimated at $5.2 million in fiscal year 25 and 26. This will be spent on street resurfacing and rehabilitation projects. And this slide, a project under storm drain includes a mandatory project. Currently, the city is not meeting the required 100% trash reduction by end of this month, but has a plan to reach 100% in 3 to 5 years. The Neptune Drive Flood Protection Assessment District Formation Project will hire a consultant to form an assessment district for about 1,000 residents in the vicinity of Neptune Drive to help pay for a levy that would remove the residents from the special flood hazard area. Currently, we are budgeting about $5 to $6 million for the maintenance and rehabilitation of our roadways. The city's current PCI is at 58. Many grantors require that cities maintain a PCI at 60 to receive grants. Increasing the PCI by 5, as shown here in the graph, and maintaining this PCI afterwards will allow the city to continue to receive grant funding. To achieve this, an average annual budget of $15.4 million is needed to increase the PCI to 62 by 5 points and $11.67 million annually to keep it at these levels. Moving on to plan updates and studies category. The master plan of city streets have not been updated since 1992. This would allow the city to reevaluate the built-out needs of the city's street network while considering multimodal transportation consistent with the city's policies related to Vision Zero and complete streets. The next project, the impact fee study, would determine the required multimodal improvements in addition to street improvements and would study the nexus to fund these improvements. Next proposed project, the payment cut impact fee development, would hire a consultant to develop a fee and to codify this fee. This would allow the city to charge a fee for every time a utility company or a contractor cuts into the streets. The fees will be used for street maintenance and rehabilitation. Now, for the sanitary sewer project category, it would fund the city's sanitary sewer repair, lift station improvements, and plant upgrades. For the fiscal year 26, the total budget for sanitary sewer is at $16.8 million. For the fiscal year 26-27 budget, many of these projects under these categories have been explained earlier. I will not be spending too much time on this slide. However, note that in the second year of the biennial budget, we are proposing to begin repairs to the parking lots. For roadway network projects, approximately 5.5 million is budgeted towards street sealing and street rehabilitation. Funding is also proposed for the construction of MacArthur Roundabout, which is partially funded by the Housing Incentive Pool Grant. But additional funds are needed for negotiations with the property owner and budget impacts from federalizing the project. Note, however, that there is a typo in the table in the amount of the budget using gas tax. Instead of 1.043 million, it should only be 543,000. A difference of about 500,000 can be used on a different project. The next project is the Lake Chabot Road project. About 2 million of FEMA grant was received in 2023. However, a recent update to the engineer's estimate increased the construction cost, and with construction not expected until a couple of years, additional funds of 1 million is still needed to fully fund the project. Onto the plan updates and studies category. For the construction of vehicle impact fee study, a consultant will be hired to study the impacts of the number of heavy vehicles required per unit and the estimated miles traveled on arterials and collectors based on historical city data. And these fees will be charged to developers. Finally, the budget request for sanitary sewer in fiscal year 2027 will be 7.9 million. This concludes the proposed CIP budget recommended for funding. In the next slide, I will be presenting recommended CIP projects, but with no funding. For the first project, the budget request of 4.25 million will be needed to fully fund the stormwater trash capture project. This is part of a larger project that would be funded starting fiscal year 26 and then fiscal year 27, and also already carries a grant of 1 million from EPA as well as 3.3 million funding from Caltrans. The ADA transition plan update will help fulfill the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act and is managed by the federal regulations. The third project on the list is an update to the Green Infrastructure Plan, which will help identify and implement GI projects that are mandated by the Water Board for road reconstruction projects. Next project is a joint FEMA grant application project, was approved for funding, and about 1.45 million has been awarded for the construction of the Neptune levee. However, an additional 3.8 million will be needed if the assessment district is not approved. Next project in line is the citywide storm drain visual inspection project, which would collect data on the condition of the storm drain system. Inspection will be phased, one maintenance zone per year, to complete the project in 4 years. Next project is the annual program that allows residents to participate in a larger construction contract administered by the city. This is a program that has been continuously funded every year. However, because of funding shortfalls, this has not been programmed for fiscal year 27. It's important to note that state law puts the responsibility of maintaining the sidewalks and the liability directly to the adjacent property owner. This program would help and provide that service to the residents so that they can avail of unit prices from a larger contract due to economies of scale. The next project in line is a pilot project that the city is proposing that utilizes a different technology to support the sidewalk program with a cost savings of about 80% compared to the traditional removal and replacement of the sidewalk. Next project under parks is the shoreline erosion repair. Currently, there is budget for a consultant to be hired to estimate the costs to mitigate and repair critical and severely damaged assets along the shoreline. That estimate will help determine the funding needs in the future. Next project, the planned roofing project for fire stations 10 and 11 will be deferred until funding is available. Next project, the Lake Chabot Road Stabilization Project, which supersedes the Lake Chabot Erosion Control Project, which are damages from the 2022 winter storm, will need $4.5 million and has been deferred until funding is available. It's important to note that this project supersedes the erosion control project that was funded by FEMA. This project was designed, however, with the winter storm redesign of certain areas of the Lake Chabot had to be done. It was also shelved earlier because of lack of funding. Last on this list is undergrounding of utilities at East 14th Street, north of 150th. This is an existing project and will require $3.5 million to fully fund. On to citywide bicycle and pedestrian network improvements category for fiscal year 27. Cycle tracks are similar or the same and recognized to be the same as Class 4 bikeways and separated bikeways. Cycle tracks are in design on Estudillo Avenue between Bancroft and MacArthur Boulevard. This project will be put on hold until funding is available. On westbound Davis Street at Doolittle Drive, striping changes and traffic signal modification was identified in the general plan update in the draft EIR and will require $280,000 to fully fund. This project will be deferred. Last on the list is the traffic signal fiber optic improvements. It's an existing project which will restore and expand communication to the city's traffic signal network. Interconnection between signals allow the system to communicate better for the efficient flow of traffic. This project will also be deferred. Finally, the truck route study is being proposed and will analyze and optimize traffic flow within the city to minimize the negative impacts of truck traffic to residential streets and improve transportation efficiency. Last but not the least, the following are projects that are not recommended for funding since the project has been dormant for a long time. The design and scope of the project will need to be reevaluated and redefined before the project can move forward, or the project is tied to an external element that would prevent it from being funded. Such of these projects include the Casa Peralta project, the Shoreline Park Phase 3 decommissioning and Phase 1 development, Shoreline Park construction, Doolittle Drive streetscape project, Hayes Street, undergrounding of East 14th Street, and the Dan Nemi Way Creek Trail. It's important to note that for a couple of these projects have available funding that is unrestricted, and the amount is about 3.7 million. This concludes my presentation. And for the next steps, today we presented the draft CIP. On June 16th, a public hearing will happen, and the biennial budget for the biennial budget adoption. And on July 7th, depending on the comments that we received tonight, that is the plan for the CIP adoption. The next 3 slides is just the total project list in the hopes that it would assist City Council to look for projects and the cost of those projects easily, as opposed to looking for it in the slide. So that concludes my presentation. I would like to open the floor for any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. Okay, so here I sit, mindful of time, mindful of the fact that I've got a total of 6 of us who would like to discuss, ask questions and the like, and the fact that we've got 21 minutes authorized to proceed. I do want to make clear to the council that unlike the budget, where we have to have an adopted budget and we were facing a certain amount of time pressure, we do want to move this forward, but it is not critical that this all be done tonight. So just, I want to let you, because I know some of you are stressed about maybe some of the time commitment that you have tonight or time availability tonight. So I want to be respectful of that, but at the same time, to the extent that we can give some good feedback, ask some questions and guidance, I do want to avail ourselves of that opportunity. So right now, we have approval till 10:15. If we want to go ahead and make that change now would be a good time to do that. Okay, seeing no interest in that, let us proceed first with Councilmember Aguilar.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a few questions. One is with regards to the MacArthur Roundabout and the gas tax fund, the misappropriating of that on the spreadsheet. You mentioned that there's an extra $500,000 that is floating somewhere.
Yes. So when it was budgeted, there was an interest estimate that apparently came out to be overstated. And then when we realized that there was not enough time to change the slide. So what that means is when we appropriated the budget for that project, we made sure that we had the 500,000. Now that that is in excess of what is needed for that project, that 500,000 in SB1 funds can be utilized by another project. The beauty of this is because SB1 funds are restricted in a way for certain types of projects, we could swap the SB1 funds with general funds so that the unrestricted funding due to the general fund will be more flexible in assigning to another project.
Gotcha. Thank you for that clarification. So my concern is the unfunded mandates. Is there, we're talking about the ADA, my concern is the ADA transition plan update and self-evaluation plan. Is that, I mean, I just want to make sure we're not violating anything and that we're, if we decide to postpone this, these are mandated, but they're unfunded. What are we doing to make sure that we mitigate risk?
So currently we have an existing ADA transition plan that is coming due in fiscal year 27. It would be prudent to update that transition plan so that we are not held liable for not meeting our prior ADA transition plan.
Gotcha. Thank you. Those are my questions.
I'm looking down Council Row for any other questions or comments at this time. Councilmember Simon, please.
Yes, I have a question or comment on the wastewater side. And let's see. My question has to do with, from a CIP perspective, replacement of sewer mains. Is there any money in there for replacement of sewer mains?
There is funding in the enterprise fund, and I can call on the Hayes Morehouse, the plant manager, to explain more.
Evening, Council. I'm Hayes Morehouse, Water Pollution Control Manager. Yes, there is funding for replacement of sewer mains. Currently, we're working through a list of priority spot repairs that need to be done. But going forward, we do want to start replacing entire segments of sewer mains. Currently working on the design for replacement of sewer lane that goes under Floresta Boulevard. That would be one of the first projects that we work on if we decide to replace that.
Okay, so we have spot repairs, but not stretches of pipe. And then how many miles of main do we have in the city?
We have 125 miles, give or take.
Okay, and approximately how roundabout the age of it?
The age of the sewer varies a lot. It varies from the older part of town where it's approaching 100 years, I believe, and to newer.
If you could
town.
keep your volume.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. The older part of town, I believe, is 80 to 100 years old. The newer parts of town are built in the 1960s.
Okay. I know we're budget constrained. I got it, but I just at least want to put on the record that I support additional sewer main replacement. Because I know you're just doing spot repairs, but at some point, the city, we have to start replacing our mains. So I would like for us to start funding that, or at least getting in our CIP.
Yes.
Okay. And then the other item I wanted to bring up is our laterals, not our laterals, but the homeowners' laterals from the house to the street. I also would like to support in the future us including a point of sale lateral replacement project where the homeowner easily, but much easier than now would be able to pay for that. Has any concepts of that in the CIP?
That's not included in the CIP because it wouldn't necessarily be a city expense. I can tell you that water pollution control staff, along with other city staff in the building and engineering department, are investigating the issue and plan to bring a report to a council committee later this fall about the feasibility of such a program.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, I want to jump in right here with a couple of my own. I'm just going to run through the list and they will be, I think, a bit thematic. So I'm going to start on page 45. We talked about storm capture devices. This, we talked about when we talked about our stormwater fee, the fact that we're only collecting like 1.2 million a year. This is specifically stormwater, right?
That is correct.
And so we're not collecting this money. We're not collecting enough money to pay for all of these expenditures that we need to make.
That is correct.
So we're subsidizing the stormwater.
Correct.
Okay. Coming down to Neptune Drive. And there's a couple of places here we talk about the formation of the district, et cetera. Big picture for me, Neptune Drive, building the I call it a berm. What's the right term?
Levy.
Levy. So building a levy, that's been on the books for, we've been talking about it for, I don't know, 8 years, a decade, something like that. At this point in time, it strikes me that every time we have seen the cost of that significantly increase from when we first talked about it a decade ago. And so for me, I just think when it comes to prioritization, we need to get that done, especially since now we have the FEMA money. To be clear, we received or are receiving, is it the 1.45 million from FEMA?
That is correct.
So this is as much to city manager, and obviously we'll have to agree as a council, but this concept of at some point, we need to make an investment in our future because the residents get the direct benefit of lower flood premiums. And so it's something where we can really show some love by using the power of government to deliver savings to our residents. On the next page, or something like where we talk about PCI on page 46. I just want to highlight just gratitude more than anything else. Thank you for talking about our PCI being 60. We literally talked about this at ACTC today and the importance of hitting that PCI of 60. I know we've been under 60 for a while now. And so thank you for demonstrating that commitment, particularly given the grantor requirements that are out there. And it is an Alameda County Transportation Commission standard that we need to be at 60 at least. Roofing repairs, so page 49, was a little bit surprised, and I could be misinterpreting what this means. But on page 49, I see 0 for next year, next fiscal year. Is that an oversight, or just we don't have the money and we have to figure out where to cut? We don't have the need?
The challenge with roofing projects, it is a need. However, it can only be funded by general fund money. We could not use any other funding sources towards it. So currently with the program, there's a need for most of the general fund money, including the reserves, that this project had to fall off the list.
Perfect. Thank you for the clarification. There are other examples of Neptune Drive and stormwater and trash capture. I'm going to skip all that to go to page 54. I got a little bit confused when you talked about hiring a consultant, and I think on page 54, shoreline erosion. Is it your same 54 as my 54? 54? They're not matching, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But it could be that yours is blank because you said right here that you want to hire a consultant, figure out how bad is bad.
Right. So I can call on Vicente for more details, but in kind of like an overview, in order to figure out how bad is bad, internal staff created an estimate of what is critical, what is urgent, and what are the things that needs to be done now, and what are the things that can be done in the next 6 months, and so on and so forth.
I'm going to pause you right there and just say, for purposes of pursuing grant funding, do we have enough engineering confidence to say, let's say, it's at least $1 million?
Not at this point.
We think it'll be less than $1 million?
Your question is for the shoreline?
All the work that needs to be done to address the damage done during those winter storms.
The internal estimate, which needs to be verified, is about 5.7 million.
Okay, so that's why I come back to my question. Do we think it's at least $1 million with a high degree of engineering certainty?
Yes.
Okay. So I think that just for reasons of going out and pursuing grants, we're not talking about whether it's 1.2 versus 1.1 versus 800. It's literally millions of dollars. We just don't know how many millions.
That is correct.
Okay, very quickly, undergrounding of the utilities at 150th, how far is that? Like, are we talking about 1 block, 1 mile? Like, what is the distance that we're talking about?
I can get that info there.
No
I
worries.
just don't have it right now.
No worries. Traffic signal fiber optic improvements, a lot of money. I do know that there's federal money sitting out there in the world specifically for improved signalization coordination between signals, a variety of pilot projects across the country. So just if that's something that we want to do and really get our traffic signals to better communicate with each other, I suspect that there may well be money out there. And that's it. I see everybody saying, I think we're ready to go. Is that what I'm getting? Okay, so at this point in time, what I'd like to do, though, is you have received some generalized guidance, but we're going to come back with, I think, a more formal guidance where we can have more time to deliberate and explore. You've heard some of the types of questions that you're getting, which will hopefully guide some of the things that you prepare for when you come back and try to get some sort of final approval. The question that I've got for city manager, given where we are and given the fact that I can tell from my counsel that we didn't really get everything that we wanted to out of this time frame, do we have to make a decision next week? Because I think that had been the vision.
Schedule shows for July 7th.
Oh, I feel much better then.
Coming back to, right, yes, July 7th.
Okay. Thank you very much. At this point in time, let me come back to my agenda. I think that was our last item. Right now, and do you have all the guidance that you need? Yes, at this point in time, given where we are. Perfect. So it is 10:08.